Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Samuel. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. So, Peter, the other day, as President Trump was heading to South Korea for his summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping, he told the assembled press aboard Air Force One that he intended to resume nuclear testing. Now, the nuclear testing, basically, the United States hasn't conducted any.
George, what does nuclear testing mean?
Exactly, what is nuclear test? No one exactly knows what that means. Except that it's tested underground. And they're basically testing the warheads, but nobody knows exactly what goes on in a test. What they do know is that the United States hasn't conducted any tests since 1992. Russia hasn't conducted any since 1990. China also not since the 1990s. Um, and this caused a great deal of consternation in the part of the media, which was very, very strange. So let's first just take a look at what it was that President Trump said in his usual, somewhat confused way. So
All right,
this is.
everyone, please put on your the Trump translator. Okay, okay.
So
Here you
yeah,
go. Hit the tab. There you go. Here, Trump translation. Go ahead.
so here he is aboard Air Force One.
They seem to all be nuclear testing. We have more nuclear weapons than anybody. We don't do testing. We've halted it many years ago. But with others doing testing, I think it's appropriate that we do also. We have more than anybody. When I see them testing, I say, well, if they're going to test, I guess we have to test. I'd like to see a denuclearization because we have so many, and Russia's second, and China's third, and China will catch up within 4 or 5 years. I think de-escalation would be they would call it denuclearization would be a tremendous thing. And it's something we are actually talking to Russia about that, and China would be added to that if we do something.
All right, so that was his.
Well, George, how many seconds was that?
That was not too many. That was about
Yeah, well, there's a
altogether.
whole lot to unpack
There's
there.
a whole lot to unpack, and then he, let's just then followed this up with a truth, which was written in his own somewhat characteristic. I don't know, his characteristic confused way. Here he is. The United States has more nuclear weapons than any other country. This was accomplished, including a complete update and renovation of existing weapons during my first term in office. Because of the tremendous destructive power, I hated to do it, but had no choice. Russia is second. China is a distant third. Will be even within 5 years because of other countries' testing programs. I have instructed to the Department of War to start testing our nuclear weapons on an equal basis. That process will begin immediately.
Well, okay, so everybody, if you think that Trump is convoluted off the cuff, he's even more convoluted in the written word, George.
Right. It's certainly the case. Now, I mean, let's leave aside, the which people have been, oh, that's not true, and the United States doesn't have more nuclear weapons than anyone else. Okay, well, I mean, a lot depends on how you count things. I mean, it's like, yes, in terms of the total number of warheads, Russia has more warheads than the United States. But on the other, if you count strategic warheads, then the United States has more, Russia has smaller warheads. It also depends on whether you're counting launchers or whatever. I mean, throw weight. These are all different ways of counting. So, we don't need to get bogged down into, oh, Trump got that wrong or anything.
Well, I think he technically got it wrong, but is it important? No.
No, I
Okay.
don't. I don't think so. And I think this is really the point that this hysterical meltdown that greeted Trump's announcement is coming from the very people who think it's perfectly fine to send Tomahawk missiles to
Exactly.
Ukraine. And we know the point about the Tomahawk missiles is that they cannot be used without actually Americans using them. Americans actually providing the targeting data, Americans doing the targeting to avoid Russian anti-missile defenses. And above all, when they're launched, Russia does not know whether they're carrying a nuclear or a conventional warhead. So for all they know, when they see a launch, that could be a nuclear powered missile heading towards Russia, launched by the United States. That's fine. All those, all the various pundits say, that's fine. Just give them the tomahawks. Give them the tomahawks.
And if it has a nuclear warhead, all the much better.
Exactly, all the better. That'll teach Putin a lesson. That'll bring Putin to the negotiating table. That'll focus his mind.
Yeah, but then they get their knickers all tied up when no, numerically that's not true. I mean, what difference does it make? Why is Trump talking about it? Well, that is interesting and that is important. But if you want to get into the weeds about Trump speak, well,
Right.
get used to it and get a life.
Right. No, that's exactly it. And the point is that we've talked about arms control here in the past, and I think we're in agreement that arms control are good as part of a process of détente, rapprochement, improvement of relations, because they express the desire of both sides to de-escalate tensions and minimize the possibility of a dangerous war, dangerous confrontation. That's what in the heyday of arms control was in the heyday of détente, from about 1964 through to about 1980. But when you have a situation which is going on now, which is when NATO essentially is waging a war, a direct war. It's not even a proxy war. It's waging a direct war against Russia. Then you can't just simply say, oh, yeah, but let's have arms control. Let's sort of, we can have arms control. You can't have arms control when you're kind of talking about war. And that's why this is so ridiculous that that somehow this liberal mind, arms control, we're supposed to be for that. We're liberals, so we're for arms control. You can't have arms control when you're lobbing Tomahawk missiles at Russia.
Well, I don't know if this is a significant issue that divides us here. I mean, when I hear about nuclear testing, first of all, what are we talking about? Testing warheads, delivery systems, all of these things, because those things are important. At this juncture, given what you just said, with the cavalier attitude about Tomahawk, it's just so cavalier, okay?
Yep.
And we're preparing, war for 2030 and
Right.
conscription
Yes.
and all this.
Yes.
The last thing I want to hear about is any kind of nuclear testing, okay?
Right.
I mean, can we keep that dial down? I mean, all the other ones are off the charts right now, okay?
That's right. That's right.
Trump, again, your slavish drive for a Nobel Peace Prize. Maybe when the Nobel Committee gets its mind back together again after its lunacy, maybe a new START agreement would be a Nobel Prize for anyone that
Right.
devises it. I'd be for it. Okay.
Yes.
So, I mean, for me, it was, again, I'm not going to get into the weeds over the numbers because you're just looking mindlessly to criticize Trump. And if that's your line of business,
That's the
that's your
thought.
line of
Exactly. It's
business.
just
That's not my line of business. Okay.
Right.
I don't, I take the balls and strikes. Okay.
Absolutely. That's my views. Who the hell cares how you're going to count it? Oh, is the Russia has more? Everything. It's always been the case.
Of course, America has more. Of course, America's better. Of course, of course, of course. Haven't you gotten used to it? We've been dealing with this man for 10 years.
Exactly. He's never going to accept that the United States is second in anything. I mean, we come in second. Of course, he's never going to say
Trump's steaks are the best steaks in the world, George, and you know it.
That's exactly the number one. Now, the thing is that these arms control agreements have indeed lapsed one by one because the West has, but year by year since around 2002, has been driven by an anti-Russian animus. I mean, all the various policies it's pursued, they're all of a piece as to why the arms control process has collapsed. I mean, if you're expanding NATO up to Russia's borders, if you're, basically creating a series of NATO satellite states armed to the teeth on Russia's borders, it's going to be very hard to say, yeah, but let's have an arms control agreement. I mean, let's do that. I mean, you
Well, I
can't do
mean, it's very interesting is that the heyday of arms control is was during the time of the Soviet Union,
it.
obviously. And what does that tell you? That there was the West gave the Soviet Union a modicum of legitimacy
Right.
that you can make an agreement. With the Russian Federation, they will not accord the same
No,
favor. They
absolutely.
know you are. We cannot because you're not a legitimate partner. That's what
Right.
they're saying all of the time. Oh, you cheat. Yeah, I don't. Are you an arms control expert? And then maybe we can ask Scott Ritter who cheated. Okay. No, obviously you don't want the agreement.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
and then cheating is your excuse.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly.
And one important point here is that I don't buy the cheating argument
No, actually,
because
me neither.
arms control agreements are inherently good for both sides. That's why they
Right.
work.
Right.
Okay. They're inherently good and
Right.
they're popular.
That's
People like it.
that's right.
And it dials things down. Just as George said, well, we have an arms control agreement, you know, amicably, reasonably, with respecting each side. Maybe there's something else we could work on. Huh?
That's the thing, because during the Détente era, yes, you signed all those assault agreements, the ABM treaty, but what else did you sign? Well, you signed a four-power agreement on Berlin, so you regularized the situation around Berlin. You signed the Helsinki Final Act. You regularized relationships between the East and
Chemical, biological
exactly.
weapons
You created
conventions.
the biological weapons convention, the chemical weapons convention. So you do all of these things, and of course
They're
there was
good.
the
They're good.
non-proliferation treaty, which you also signed in that time. So yeah, but it's all of the package. But you can't fetishize arms control as if something, well, I like that because I'm a liberal and I'm supposed to be like arms control. Well, you can't. I mean, arms control has to be part of a package. Now, today, there's a story in the Financial Times, we cover these things all the time. And here is the typical story. We've done so many of these. NATO weighs armed response to Vladimir Putin's hybrid war. Oh, so that's fine. That's nothing destabilizing here. Not like
Yeah.
having underground nuclear tests. I mean,
Well, I'm a little surprised by the title because it's NATO that is waging a hybrid war against Russia. But
That's
I,
right.
I, I,
But as you read this article, you're still wondering where's the hybrid war and what exactly is NATO planning to do? Because it doesn't sound that there's anything that NATO is doing here that is defensive. So here's the story. NATO allies are discussing a more forceful response to Vladimir Putin's increasingly provocative actions, including by deploying armed drones along the border with Russia and easing restrictions on pilots to allow them to open fire on Russian aircraft.
well, that assumes okay. George and I cover this laser focused. Okay, so I mean, I'm going to cut to the chase. Where's your evidence that of these actions? You can call them provocative. Okay, fine. But we don't have any evidence of malice on the part of the
Right.
Russians. Maybe there is, but you haven't shown any
No,
evidence.
no, and that's the thing. So what they're saying, well, if any Russian aircraft intrudes on our airspace, we will immediately shoot it down. Now, you know, aircraft may intrude into airspace for all sorts of reasons. There may be some flaw in the navigation equipment. Pilots make mistakes. If you shoot it down, that's a serious escalation because if you make no attempt to ascertain whether this is just simply a mistake, and you make no attempt to just to warn and say, hey,
Yeah,
you're
I mean,
intruding in our airspace, you just shoot it down and therefore kill pilots and everything and crew
well,
and
I mean, I
everything else.
think
That's a serious escalation.
yeah, and I don't know, maybe I'm a victim of Hollywood, but you'd scramble a jet, go up there and say, "Hey, dude, you're in the wrong place. You
You're
better
in the
get out
wrong
of here
place. That's
right
what you're
now.
supposed to do.
Okay,
Yeah.
if you made a mistake, we got it. It just, be
Right.
on your way." Okay.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
that's a civilized approach. Why is that the best way? Because it avoids escalation.
Right.
Okay.
And that's it. But they already are talking to, oh, we just shoot it down. We're going to just, shoot it down. There was a Belgian defense minister who was saying the other day that, if there's anything comes into a Belgian airspace, we're going to level Moscow.
I think he said flatten, but
Yeah, flat. Right.
yeah, yeah,
I don't know what language you were speaking, so
and
I don't.
he's been living it down ever since.
Right.
Yes, I said it, but that's not what I meant.
Right.
Okay,
But you see, it's very
another dull knife in the drawer. I mean, here's your 15 minutes of fame. You made a complete ass out of yourself.
Well, it is, and it's very strange. Again, you got this country like Belgium, which is kind of a small country, and it's sort of in the way, and it's already found in a couple of world wars that it's just, it's very small and in the way of things. And the Germans just said, look, we need to use this piece of territory. Sorry, I mean,
Sorry for the inconvenience.
yeah, exactly. But we're going to use it, and that's all there is to it. Since Belgium knows something about the experience of, what great powers can do to you when you're in the way, it's very odd to start talking in this very belligerent way. But the reason why they talk like this is that they think they have this Article 5 protection. I mean, that's why Radek Sikorski talks about, well, we're gonna if Putin's plane intrudes in Polish airspace, we're gonna take it down, arrest Putin, haul him off to The Hague. Okay, well, and what's going to happen then? You think Russia will just simply shrug its shoulders
Yeah,
about that?
Radek, I don't know if you would have a country after that.
I don't think so. But they think, well, we can do it because we have this Article 5 protection. And this is what always happens. This is, like, what was the phrase of people about, when you get hooked on welfare, or there's a particular moral, this particular phrase, the moral, not quite laxity, but somehow because you're dependent on someone else completely, you can act in totally irresponsible way because somebody's always going to come
I'm
and
surprised you
hold up
haven't.
you.
I'm surprised you haven't brought it up. But okay, Belgium and Poland have been mentioned here. Now, George and I go back to the original, what is it? The original text of The Sopranos. Okay, and Poland and Belgium in this context, they're made men. Okay, I'm a made man.
That's right.
Okay, you can't do that to me. I'm a
That's
made
right.
man.
That's right.
Okay, and it shows this mafia environment. You
Right.
can't touch me. I'm a man. I'm a made man.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
You don't cross made men, okay?
That,
And that's how they behave.
that's right.
Okay, you're
That's
going to
right.
be just you remember the scene when Meadow had that encounter with what was his name? Um, Coco? Yeah, Coco.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
because she was on a date, and
Yes.
then the two of them come up. He said, "Hey, are you dating Tony Soprano's
Yeah.
daughter?"
Right.
Okay, and then that scene, and it is horrific, but I mean, amazingly well staged when he
Right.
comes in from the back.
Right.
And you don't talk to my daughter, okay?
That's right.
Even if you're a made man, you
Right.
can't do that,
Right.
okay?
Right. But that's the thing that this is why they talk in this way. They're having these talks, and then they think they can just issue all these threats because, well, they've got this Article 5 protection. Um, this is destabilizing. You want destabilizing, that's destabilizing. You know, the point about the nuclear testing, there was nuclear testing, between I think 1964 and 1980. The United States conducted, I think, 360 underground tests. So that's an average of about 20 tests a year. So that's more than one a month, almost two a month. No one thought that this is destabilizing. Everyone just did this. They tested nuclear missiles. Nobody even talked about this. So there's nothing destabilizing about it. It's perfectly compatible with the détente process. So that's why the fuss about Trump's comment. is just so absurd. This is destabilizing. Talking about delivering Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, that's really dangerous stuff. I
Hey,
mean, wait,
and
yeah,
George brought up the was it in the defense minister? He was the Belgian defense minister, correct? Yeah. Okay.
yes,
I saw him. Okay. I would have thought if his intellect reflected his the quality of his suit, you would expect more. I mean, very suave and all that, but just a complete flathead. No one talked like that in Europe during the Cold War,
no,
George.
no, no,
Nobody did.
that's
Nobody did. Because you know why? Because they were more responsible and,
correct.
and they were more measured in their words.
Yep,
Okay. These
yep.
are people are off, you know, they're off their rockers. Okay. I mean, who is it? Do they have like a contest? Who can say the most provocative thing this week? And let's talk about it in our next
That's right.
mindless meeting in
Yes.
Brussels.
That's right. That's right. There's a competition between this guy and then the Danish Prime Minister, then Matti Frederiksen, Radek Sikorski, and then of course you have Kaja Kallas,
And
um,
and and Stub.
that and Stubb, the Finnish president. There's a competition among them. Who's going to say something truly idiotic? Um, and then this is the way they talk. But of course, it all stems, as you just said, that they're not willing to accord the Russian Federation any respect. They had that respect for the Soviet Union because the Soviet Union showed power. People still recall during the Cold War, because people still alive who remembered World War II. They said they kind of recalled the Red Army's exploits in World War II, and that led them to, well, you don't mess with the Soviet Union. That was always that, you just don't mess with them. These people, they mean business, and you start fiddling around in near their borders, you're going to get really thumped and thumped badly. But they haven't accorded that respect to the
What
Russian
is the
Federation.
phrase? FAFO?
Yes, yes. Yes, that's right. But again, if you remember in Doctor Strangelove, you remember even General Turgidson, who absolutely loathed the commies. He just he hated the commies. But then when he came to World War II, he says, "Well, when whatever you say about the commies, they knew how to fight. You didn't mess with them. They when you see them fight, they you don't say anything disparaging about their fighting abilities." Um, but you see here, the talks are aimed at raising the cost for Moscow of its hybrid warfare and lay out clear countermeasures after a spate of airspace violations by Russian drones and jets. Which, as you said, there's never really been any evidence presented that any of that. Well, we don't even know whether they really happened, but
That's the
certainly
point.
we'd have no evidence that there was any malevolent intent. What happened to the drones? They just always they appear and then they
What is
disappear.
it? What is it, George? They are they looking for some kind of orgasmic pleasure by shooting down a plane? See, we shot one
Right.
down. Oh,
That's
look at we're strong. I mean,
right.
is that what this is all about? I mean, because it seems to me that again, this is kind of a psychological game. They want to prove their manliness, their toughness. Oh, he took out a plane. Oh, look, look
That's
how
right.
strong. I mean, it looks like that to
That's
me.
right. That's
Okay,
right.
because what is the strategic value of doing that? No, it's a short-term, ephemeral, technical
Right.
thing. It's not a game changer when it comes to strategy in the
No,
conflict. And as I always say, for the 1 millionth time, how does this help Ukraine?
no, but they don't care about that.
Right.
But it is they want to play tough guys. This is the point about this NATO alliance. You have these tiny countries, and they suddenly, they posture as tough guys. Hey, we got Estonia, a country about the size of a small town in New Jersey, and yet it's posture. We're going to do this and this to Russia. We're not scared of Russia.
We're a made man. We're
That's right.
made.
Yeah,
NATO made.
that's right. And then so it says frontline states.
Front,
Uh,
oh, front line. Are we at war, everyone?
exactly,
Are we
exactly.
at war?
That's the way they talk. You read all these stories. that they talk about, well, they are determined on a war. I mean, we talked about this war. They are determined to have their war, and they're eager to provoke this war. I mean, it's like nothing is going to stop them. I mean, there's nothing is going to, because it just gets worse and worse and worse. This
Oh, I
hysteria
love
gets worse by the day.
I love how this sentence ends. In the 32 strong.
Right. Yes.
I mean, it's not, no, because it's 32, it isn't very strong, okay? George and I have been saying this for our entire adult life. You know, you expand it, you actually thin it out, you dilute it, and you create more instability. No, it's
Yes.
not, it's a 32 ambivalent
Right.
alliance.
Well, you create this. They created this instability by incorporating states that
That
had
don't
this.
add security.
No, we don't. And incorporating, but also states that had an rabid animus towards Russians. And that, of course, immediately destabilized NATO, because you suddenly have all these Baltic states, and then you got Poland, and then you start bringing in the Czechs, and so suddenly the whole tone of NATO
It
is transformed.
shifted exactly.
Exactly, and it just becomes this rabidly hostile alliance that is that's itching to start a war with Russia. Um,
It's really interesting because you can make the case, and I don't want to go, it's too much of a diversion for here. But I mean, during the Cold War, you can make the a strong argument it was defensive. Okay, it was prepared for the Soviet juggernaut. But after the Cold War, it became an anti-Russia alliance.
yes, yes, yes. Of course it
Wait,
was.
but you wouldn't say it was an anti-Russian alliance before the end of the Cold War. I mean, you could say that, and if we were in a seminar, we'd go, okay, probably not the most eloquent language, but that's
No,
what it is now.
no. But you see, the thing was that, yeah, I mean, NATO would say, yeah, we're a defensive alliance, but of course they, at least in principle, they appreciated that that's not quite how the Soviet Union views you. They see you as an aggressor state, and that they think this is a part of a plan by the United States eventually to destroy the Soviet Union. I mean, as the Soviets looked at it, they didn't see this as a defensive alliance, particularly not after West Germany, a rearmed West Germany, became a member of it.
But I absolutely agree. I mean, if you wanted to look at the outrage moments of the Cold War, adding West Germany to NATO was one of them.
Right.
But going back to what our point here is, even with that, as a confidence building measure, we're going to have arms control.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Everyone said, you have to separate it. No, George and I are in the school. They have to be combined.
Combined.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you don't if there is incorporating West Germany into NATO, we're going to have no arms control. That's definitely a very provocative,
Right.
even offensive message.
Right.
But we're going to do this, and we're going to do this,
That's
and you know what? It worked.
exactly, exactly, and that was it, and that's why when they had those big summits, the Nixon Brezhnev summits, at which they signed the big arms control treaties of that time, they always emphasized this is part of peace, that they're seeking peace, making sure the United States and the Soviet Union do not go to war against each other. It's part of that process. Whether one side has more intercontinental ballistic missiles or the other, it doesn't matter. Who has more warheads is the
If you
throwaway.
have arms control, if you have real arms control, it doesn't matter.
Exactly, but that's right. And so, I mean, there used to be the people who hated arms control. They would always say, "Oh, the Soviet Union has more missiles than the United States have. This is very dangerous. It's all part of a Soviet plot." And that was when famously Kissinger said, "What in God's name is strategic superiority? What do you do with it?" And that was the point. To say, "Oh, the Soviet Union has more missiles than the United States has." Okay, And how does that help the Soviet Union? How, is that going to help the Soviet Union enjoy more security because it has more intercontinental ballistic missiles than the United States? So of course not.
It had
But
security because it had arms control.
it had arms control. Exactly. That was the point. That when you had the arms control, and when you had the regular summits, and you had an attempt to come to an agreement on the various contentious issues in the world, whether it was the Middle East or whether it was Berlin, then you've got a peace. But by itself, arms control doesn't get you anywhere. Remember, there were all the beginning of the arms control era was the 1920s and the 1930s, and there was the Washington naval agreements, and then they decide who's allowed to have more tonnage than the other, and then of course there was the Anglo-German naval agreement. Well, that didn't really do anything very much because the underlying issues that divided the great powers remained. And so those arms control, no one even knows about those things like the Anglo-German Naval Agreement or the Washington Naval Treaties because they're just part of history. It didn't make any difference because the fundamental issues dividing the great powers remained. And and that's why the absolute hysteria that met Trump. Now you may well be right. Now is not the time to be talking about it. That's fair enough.
That's my only real objection to this. Okay, it just kind of adds to the mix of escalation and ambiguity, and we don't need either.
Right,
Okay, that's all.
right,
That was my only
right,
meta observation.
right.
But when you get into the minutia, I agree with you
That's
completely.
right. That's right. But even as we read this, there says proposals include arming surveillance drones used to collect intelligence on Russian military activities. Well, the Russians might well then try to shoot these drones down. I mean, if you're going to
Well,
send them there
George,
to,
there's one arms control agreement we haven't mentioned here. Let's go back to that sentence. Proposals include arming surveillance drones used to collect intelligence on Russian military activity. Well, we had open skies.
that's right, exactly,
We had open skies, which was very advantageous
right,
to the West, not to Russia.
yep,
Okay? And the Russians agreed to it.
right.
Okay, so I mean, what dumbbell wrote this here? I mean, if we had open skies still, we wouldn't even need this.
No, you're absolutely right. And then another option is to conduct NATO military exercises on the border with Russia, especially in more remote and unguarded parts of the frontier. And that's not destabilizing, no, no, no. Well, that's fine. But it's okay. Okay by me.
Oh my goodness! So you have part on the front line. It's relatively quiet. Okay, we're going to destabilize that place
That's
too.
right. That's right. That's right.
And so you have this hair trigger. All you want to add to it. You want to add more ambiguity, more instability. This is lunacy.
Yes.
This is how
That
you get into war.
that's exactly it. And that's why I think all of this is very dangerous. And we've talked about this before when you have German political leaders talking about, well, we have to prepare for war by 2030, then you have to take this seriously. I mean, they are preparing for war.
You know what,
And
George? Maybe the Russians will take it seriously too.
I tend to think that they do.
Yeah.
When you start talking like this, generally states have historically taken that kind of talk seriously. That's no joke. When an adversary starts talking about preparing for war by 2030, those were the steps that led up to World War One. I mean, there've been a number of books written, masterful books written about these steps that led to World War One. Those were the steps when people started talking in this very loose way about the coming war and how we have to prepare for it.
When someone tells you who they are, believe
Right.
them.
Exactly. Exactly. Um, and then here we have two of the NATO officials said that one urgent issue was to streamline the rules of engagement along the eastern flank.
Okay,
What
streamline is a key word for loosen.
what are these rules of engagement? Some countries require fighter pilots to make visual confirmation of threats before engaging. Oh, that's really unreasonable to demand visual confirmation of threats before engaging. I want to engage before I have a confirmation of any threat. I just, if I feel there's a threat, then I should just simply shoot
Yeah, I'm going to
first.
rely on Google Maps. Okay.
Exactly. I don't want any confirmation. I don't, I don't need it. While others allow them to open fire based on radar data or the perceived danger from the direction or speed of a hostile object. How do you know it's a hostile object? You just
Well,
simply,
George, maybe I'm a simpleton here, but maybe if you had a hotline and say, "Hey, we see two planes coming over here. Are they yours? What's going on here?" Okay, that's the way it used to be in some cases. Okay, instead of reaching for your gun, maybe you should reach for the phone.
yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah, you don't have anything like that. The NATO discussions come as the EU prepares to take its own steps in response to the Russian provocation. You see, this they keep talking about the Russian provocations, and then you got the Russian hybrid war, as if the more you repeat it and you never really spell out what you mean, then it just becomes something that's actually there. It's something
Yeah,
really existing.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, Saddam's weapons of mass destruction, right? Yeah.
That's right. Exactly. And then so these include the curbing the travel around Europe of Russian diplomats. So that was part of the
What
19.
is that going to do? What are you accomplishing by that? Like diplomats are carrying like secret codes or something.
Yes,
Well, they have signal groups, okay? I mean,
right. But you see, they say suspected of intelligence agents of running agents and sabotage operations. Now, that's a serious, if you're saying they're running sabotage operations, that's a criminal act. So, show us the evidence that they're engaging in these criminal acts of conducting sabotage operations. Um, no, I mean, of course, it's just a nastiness that that just basically Russian diplomats will not be able to travel to any other country other than the one they've been assigned to. And now, what they call gathering intelligence. Well, all diplomats gather intelligence. They're
of
supposed to write
course.
reports to back home as to what people are saying, what the conditions are. That's the whole point of having diplomats. They are in the business of collecting information and then sending it home. I mean,
That's what
that's why they.
That's what American and British diplomats do in Russia.
Yes, that's right. Um, and then we have Ursula von der Leyen says this is a deliberate and targeted gray zone campaign against Europe, and Europe must respond. Russia wants to sow division. We have to answer with unity. We must be united. We must not only react, we must deter. Because if we hesitate to act, the gray zone will only expand. The,
Could you imagine being
the
married?
will to
Could you
power.
imagine could you imagine being married to her?
I mean, especially talking in this.
She might wake up in the middle of the night and start speaking this gibberish, okay?
It is complete gibberish, but there's also this chilling sense you get, from her, from Annalena Baerbock, when they're talking in this way. I mean, think, and you're still going to go on saying that this is about defensive. You're somehow defending. What exactly are you defending? None of this is even remotely sounds as if you're defending anything. I mean, you're talking about, uniting for this confrontation with Russia. You've got.
It's it,
Yeah.
this is there is a built-in assumption, and it is obvious as the nose on my face that they're at war.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. I mean, if you weren't at war, you'd say, "Hey, you're, there's events going on that concern us. Can we sit down and talk about this?" And let's get squared away. Just a thought. Maybe just have a chat about this. No, they don't.
No,
They don't.
no.
Because like I said, they want to shoot down something
That's
to
that's
show
right.
that they're vigilant.
That's right. That's right. It is, I mean, remarkable that this kind of this belligerence, on the part of the Europeans. Now, of course, you know, all of this is a kind of it's a vicariousness, because ultimately they know that they can't possibly fight a war with Russia. It's everything hangs on the United States. There's a calculation here. They're going to get themselves in a shooting war, and then the United States will come in. They'll scream Article 5, Article 5, Article 5, and the United States will be obligated to fight on their behalf, because they know they can't possibly fight Russia. So this is the kind of the mentality that drives them on, and ultimately, I don't see anything at all that can stop them, because they've been determined to do this really since I think preceding this. So all this precedes 2022. I mean, there's been a slow, steady build-up for years and years, for preparing for this confrontation. Ursula von der Leyen, she's been preparing for this for many years, and that's why it's hard to see how this can be resolved, unless there's a serious confrontation, and then maybe cooler heads will finally prevail. If really people start getting shot and killed, and then say, "Hey, this is now dangerous."
Well, what this all tells us, and George is right, this precedes the advent of the special military operation in Ukraine. One way or another, and it doesn't matter how many different mousetraps that we invent. The goal is the strategic defeat of Russian and the dissolution
Yes.
of the Russian Federation.
Yes.
And they're going to try it from every single angle. Okay? Every single angle. And there's nothing stopping it. Nothing. Okay? Not even their own publics, not their own voters. Okay? Um, a recent public opinion poll, and Rudy Fruity there from NATO, he was asked about it in the Oval Office. Only 23% of Ukrainians want this war to continue. He has no answer to
No,
that whatsoever.
no,
Why? Because all of that is irrelevant.
right.
It is a plan has been set into motion. And events on the ground it doesn't matter, okay? It's just minutia. The goal remains the same. And up and until there's a major defeat, they will continue it, because it's very important for the internal dynamics of the European Union.
Yep.
Okay, this is their organizing principle right now.
Yep.
Oh, they screwed up on COVID. Yeah, they screwed up on COVID. They screwed up on immigration. Yeah, they screwed up on the industrial policy going nowhere. But Russia is the enemy.
Yep.
It's the organizing principle.
It is the organizing principle, and that's how they apply pressure against the recalcitrant members of the EU. So, for instance, in the case of Hungary, they're continually applying the pressure of, well, you've got to get yourself off Russian oil, and so they, step by step, they are forcing Hungary to abandon
Well,
Russian oil, and
forcibly.
then pay, I don't know, five,
But
6 times more for their energy by getting it through Croatia.
forcing them or forcibly. I mean,
Possibly, yeah,
what's going on? I
that's right.
mean, internal sabotage, external, who's doing these things?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's right. That's exactly. We've
So,
had
I
to.
mean, the Russians are trying to destroy the Hungarian energy sector because, oh, I'm sorry, it doesn't make any sense,
No,
because they accept Russian oil and energy. Why would they sabotage that, George?
no, that's right.
It's
Of
the
course,
same reason. Oh, of course, the Russians took out Nord Stream.
that's right.
Okay? It,
That's
it,
right.
it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work. And of course, you have the Radek Sikorsky. It is quite amazing that this creature is a kind of permanent feature on the Polish scene. I mean, even during the
I
years.
was not surprised, because he's Washington's representative in Eastern Europe.
That's right, Washington and
And
MI6.
and don't you think even during coalition talks and elections and all that, Sikorsky gets this?
That's right.
We'll divvy everything else up, but he gets this.
That's right. That's right. Now he thought it was a great idea for Ukraine to attack the Druzhba oil pipeline, with delivering oil to Hungary. He said, "Yeah, this is great. This is fantastic." And he had the insolence to tell the Hungarian foreign minister Szijjártó, "You've been told many times to stop importing oil from Russia. You've been told, and you better listen and do as President Trump tells you to do. Stop importing oil from Russia. This is the way you talk to a fellow EU member state, and they go, "You've
No,
been
because
told,"
he's
like what you tell a schoolboy. You've been told many times.
no, he's Washington's cafeteria monitor. That's what he is.
Right,
Okay, he's the muscle.
right,
Okay, okay, or rhetorically, because
right,
he doesn't have intellectual muscle. That's for sure.
right. That's right.
Yeah, but it's thuggery.
Yes.
It's thuggery.
Yes. Yeah, that's it. But they're using this thing, oh, we're in a war with Russia, so they're
No,
using this coercion
well,
against
if you're in war, why don't you go and fight?
that's where it gets a little tricky. It's like Ursula von der Leyen, who of course has 7 children. I don't know how many grandchildren. I don't think any of her 7 children are going to go and fight. I don't think any of her grandchildren are going to go and fight. The whole point is to send somebody else to do the fighting.
Well, hopefully more
France.
Ukrainians.
That's exactly.
Yeah, because there are two countries. Okay, it's Poland and what other country wants to start sending back these able aged men back
Yeah,
to Ukraine. I mean,
yeah.
the reserves are drying up. You have to work. We got your back 100%.
That's
Okay,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah. That's right. That's right. And so this is like they use COVID essentially to expand the powers of the state, expand powers of government, essentially introduce a police state. And now essentially they're using this war with Russia, this hybrid war, information war, essentially to control every aspect of people's lives, what they can say, what they can do on the internet, and then this is how they're operating.
Well, then well, even what kind of democracy, quote unquote, they have.
Right?
Who can run for office, what parties can exist.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, if you have an election, we can cancel it. Okay. Wow. This is really
Right.
amazing. Okay, you've been
Yes.
told. You've been told.
You've
Well,
been told.
eventually, this is all going to cave in on itself. Okay. Hopefully, we can avoid a general war in Europe. In the
That's right.
meantime.
We can we can let's hope so. But this, if we want
Yeah,
to
well,
talk about,
you know why, everybody? Because George and I, where we live, it's not, we didn't win the lottery when it comes to location.
that's right.
If the worst comes to worse.
That's right. That's right. So we want to talk about stability. These are the people who are absolutely determined every day to undermine stability. Nothing to do with nuclear testing, big nothing. This is really destabilizing.
Yeah, and it's a bit rich that Russia's hybrid war, which I don't even know what that
No, I have
means.
no idea. No.
I have it's just something that's thrown out. But when I think of hybrid and I think, well, this it sounds like EU NATO policy. It's a mixture of all kinds of dirty tricks up your sleeves, rhetorical turns, and everything. Like I said, it doesn't. There's 1,001 ways that these people will a path that they will go down to get what they want. Okay. As nonsensical and stupid as it is, Russians blew up Nord Stream. Like, okay, and they keep landing flat.
Yeah.
Okay, all of these drones. Well, was there any follow-up? I mean,
That's right.
what did you find out?
That's right. And where are these drones? It's like they appear and then they disappear. Oh, it must have been Russia. That's it. So really, and how did you ascertain that? Well, we don't have to. Well, it could well have been Russia. Oh, so it could well have been. That means it must have been. And then you can say, yeah, Russia is attacking us with drones.
Or
Yeah,
maybe just some kids bought something on the internet and was screwing around with an airport because they thought it was funny. People do that kind of
they
thing.
they they
Okay?
they, they,
They
they
do that kind of, you want me to, I can shut down the national airport in 15 minutes. You want to watch?
Right, that's right. But this information war, they're really going to go after that, and to crack down as much as they can on the internet, and then I think they're going to start cracking down on anyone at all who is saying anything that's untoward, because they'll say, well, what's the Russian angle here?
This is something that I worry more for George, obviously, than for myself, is that, as things go badly for Ukraine, the more likely it is there's a fifth column among us.
Yep,
Okay.
yeah,
It's because of the stab in the back.
that's right. Yeah, yeah.
They are within, they dissent within. This is what, we spoke truth. We
Right,
spoke truth, and they
right.
spread lies. Okay. I really worry about
No,
that.
I agree,
Okay.
because they always talk about this Russian information. Russia's waging an information war against us, and you think, where is this information war that Russia is waging? I haven't seen it.
Well,
Um,
but it's such a condescending attitude to their own publics
yeah,
because why would well first of all Russian state television, I don't know anyone in the world that is forced to watch it.
I don't think
Now,
so. No,
why would someone watch it? Well, maybe they want a different point of view. You can agree or disagree with it. You can compare what
right.
you've been told by your national broadcast
Yeah,
and what the Russians think. It's up to you.
that's right. That's
It's
right.
up to the public to decide.
Right,
So, I mean, if it is having an impact, which I doubt because it's virtually banned,
right.
everyone I know in the West uses a VPN now.
Yes.
So, I mean, what was that? What was that? Was it Monty Python, the funniest joke in the in
Yes,
history?
the secret weapon,
The secret weapon.
Britain's secret weapon. A joke so funny that people died laughing as soon as they.
And so they had to cut it up into different parts, and only each person could only read that. That's
That's
how they
right. Yeah.
preserved it. Okay, because if you read the entire joke, it would kill you. But if you had just a short phrase,
That's right.
as they were trying to, disseminate it, but
Right.
it's like a nuclear hand grenade. Okay,
Right.
and actually during the Cold War, there were plans to create a nuclear hand grenade until they figured out, well, no matter how far you throw it, it's still going to incinerate you. Okay, and so this is so. We go back, and I mean this in all seriousness. We go back to Sopranos. We go back to Monty Python because that's the only thing that you can think. It's the only parallel. It's the only thing that's
The
comparable.
irony is, of course, is that John Cleese has now become this completely rabid office rocker hater of Russia. He's always tweeting out, really, he wants this war with Russia. I mean, he's, frothing at the mouth that Trump is hesitating, handing the tomahawks.
Yeah, but it just shows you that how literally, literally, not figuratively, this neoliberal approach to the world is toxic.
Right.
Okay, it
Right.
actually kills you
Yes,
eventually.
it
Okay,
does. Yeah. Yeah.
there all of these like Bono from U2 and all that. When I was growing up, fabulously popular, wonderful music. I don't deny that. Okay, but essentially they adopt a PMC view of the world, and this
Yeah.
is what you get.
Sure.
Okay,
Right.
this is what you get.
Yeah.
Okay, because George and I ex watched it in real time. George is slightly older than I am, and you remember the counterculture, and I hated it. I know you hated it. Okay, growing up. Okay, I mean, it's so we were brought up as anti-communists. Okay, well, maybe. Okay, that was kind of like in the air. No one really questioned it. But what I was brought up was hate the hippies, hate the counterculture. That was nailed into me
Yeah.
in the 60s and in the 70s.
Right.
Okay. And the counterculture devoured normie culture. Counterculture became normalized. And these are the same kind of people that, Cleese thinks he was cutting edge at one time, but then he become, coming in from the left or right, he ends up being the center. And we see
Right.
this with cultural and political phenomena over the last 60 years.
Yeah. 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 I think so. It's a kind of um, I think an irony, and not wholly unusual that the people who are kind of anti-establishment start their careers, as hey, I'm attacking the establishment, very quickly become pillars of the establishment. It's Cleese
Van
thought very much.
Jones, Van
Yeah,
Jones.
that's right, exactly. And you think, hey, I thought you were I thought you were anti-establishment. No, no, that's a figment of your imagination. I was never. It's very much. It's a very interesting phenomenon, and that often happened to many people in the 1960s. They kind of emerge, but they got edgy and attacking the establishment, and then whoa, what happened to you? So there's John Cleese, and people remember him, of course, from Monty Python, the Ministry of Silly Walks, and everything else. And lo and behold, he's sitting there frothing at the mouth that we're not doing enough to hit Russia. That so you're just like the sort of the Colonel Arbuthnot, retired colonel in Bournemouth, banging his fist on the table and demanding war with Russia. So that's who you've become. The very people you used to take the piss out of, that's who you are now.
Exactly right. Okay.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's a toxin. And
Yeah.
but it makes you money, gets you clicks.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a safe
Right.
position. Very safe. All right. This is we're about to end this. I want to do something here, George. You're not going to like it, but you'll like it. You'll like it, you won't like it. Okay. 1,999. All
This
right,
is
everybody. This is the Gaggle with Peter and George. We're on Locals, so please go to thegaggle.locals.com. Don't forget about the tip jar. This is Friday. We're doing another video. I just mentioned a number. Okay. Okay. And George and I will get back together twice on Sunday in two different venues. And God willing, I'll do a rosary before. I'll be on the live stream on Monday.
exactly. And then in the meantime, Buddy is saying, "Yeah, I'm the one that's doing all the work, and I don't get any of the kudos, the money that should be rolling in for me, Buddy. That isn't happening." So he's, not in the best of moods. So we need to cheer him up a little bit. So if you have money lying around, a nest egg that you were planning for your retirement, straight into the tip jar. Don't even take, halve
This
it.
is beginning to sound like the Gaggle mega church, but anyway.
That's right. So we're very grateful for all of your help, friendship, and support. The more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more we can improve on the technology, and above all, we might get Buddy into a more complacent mood. I don't think it's likely. But so remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye bye.